So good afternoon, students. Yesterday we discussed with the regarding the banking. Yesterday we discussed with the functions with regard to the Reserve Bank of India. Mainly, the first function is monopoly of the note issue. Means they are having the right, or they for that denominations except 1 rupee note and a coin. 1 rupee note and coin to be declared by, or prepared by, or produced by whom, or advised by the whom, issued by the government of India. The rest all notes to be issued by whom, the denominations that is to be issued by RBI. That is the first thing. Two departments are there, issuing department and banking department are there, and methods of the note issue like that. Two things are there: proportional reserve system and minimum reserve system. While acting as a banker to the government also, that is acting as a banker to all the other banks, acting as a financial agent and as a financial advisor to some of the cases. That is the one we see yesterday. So today we are going to discuss with that the continuation of this, that is excuse me. So the ways and means of advances. Section 17(5) of the Reserve Bank of India Act authorizes the RBI to make the ways and means of advances to the central and state governments. How they are providing advance or giving advance to the central as well as the state government. These advances are repayable not later than 3 months from the date of issue and granted without any collateral security. That we see in the previous session also. Besides, special ways and means advances are sanctioned to the state governments against the central government securities also. That is the ways and means of advances. Means Section 17(5) of the Reserve Bank of India Act authorizes the RBI to make the ways and means of advances to the central government. Central government, a particular time period that is to be returned back to the central government also. So by the state government or the central governments. Okay. So this RBI return it back to the RBI. These advances, okay, shall not be less than a 3 months period. So okay, that is the case. So that is the monopoly of note issue. Then second point is what, acting as a banker to the government also. Third is custodian of the forex reserve, foreign exchange reserve in a custodian. In India, RBI is acting as the custodian of the foreign exchange reserve. The Reserve Bank of India has the responsibility of maintaining the external value of the rupee. For such a purpose, the banks holds most of the nation's foreign exchange reserves. Section 40 of the Reserve Bank of India Act imposes the statutory obligation on the bank to deal with the foreign exchange. The Reserve Bank acts as the agent of the government in respect of the Indian membership of the IMF. International Monetary Fund in the Indian membership. Other that is the Reserve Bank. So Reserve Bank acts as the agent of the government. Government is an agent act so that it helps to have an Indian membership of the IMF. It has to maintain the fixed exchange rate with all the member countries of the IMF. Besides maintaining the rate of exchange of rupee, the bank also administers the exchange control, controlling the forex reserves also. It is the custodian of the Indian Reserve of International Currency. Custodian. Power. So that is the case, custodian of the Indian Reserve of International Currency. So that is custodian of forex reserve, foreign exchange reserve. Then acting as a banker's bank. RBI is acting as a banker to all the commercial banks and other financial institutions working in India. The Reserve Bank of India has the responsibility for developing an adequate and sound banking system for catering to the needs of trade, commerce, industry, and agriculture. So that is the case. RBI has the responsibility for developing an adequate and sound banking system. Banking system develop RBI is having the power to do so. So RBI has the responsibility for developing an adequate and sound banking system for catering to the needs of the trade, industry, commerce, and agriculture, wherever the sector is that, they are meeting the requirement of these things, these areas. It belongs to the trade, it helps the trade, or it helps in giving the loans to the trading activities, commerce, industry, and also agriculturists. Under the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, a bank and Banking Regulation Act 1949, the bank has been vested with the extensive powers of supervision and control over commercial and cooperative banks. സഹകരണ ബാങ്കുകൾക്കും അതുപോലെ കൊമേഴ്ഷ്യൽ വാണിജ്യപരമായ ബാങ്കുകളുടെ മേലും ഒരു പവർ they are having. That is why it is a banker's bank telling. Clear? So that is why they are having the power. RBI is having the power, extensive power of the supervision and the control over commercial and cooperative banks. The powers and responsibilities of the bank were enlarged by subsequent amendment to such an act. The Reserve Bank of India's regulatory functions cover the establishment of the banks, branch expansion, liquidity of their assets, management and method of working, amalgamation, reconstruction, and liquidation also. So what all things it is complying with the Reserve Bank of India's regulatory functions cover. What all are the functions covered? Establishment of bank to be established. Under the Reserve Bank of India Act in ഉള്ളിലാക്കണം. അത് ഏത് പുതിയ ബാങ്ക് ആണോ വരുന്നത് അവരത് ചെയ്യും. സോ എസ്റ്റാബ്ലിഷ്മെന്റ് ഓഫ് ദ ബാങ്ക്, ബ്രാഞ്ച് എക്സ്പാൻഷൻ, അത് അവരെ ആരെ അറിയിച്ചിരിക്കണം? RBIയുടെ കൺസേൺ ഇതുണ്ടായിരിക്കണം, സാങ്ഷൻ ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കണം. ഓക്കെ, സോ ബ്രാഞ്ച് എക്സ്പാൻഷൻ, liquidity of their assets, liquidity, position, management and method of working, in what way need to do so, the work, then amalgamation of the things, reconstruction and liquidation activities. So these are the main functions that act as a banker to all the banks. One thing is they are a complete control or the entire supervision and control over all the commercial and the cooperative banks. One thing that is, they need to follow, these commercial and cooperative banks and all other banks need to follow the rules and regulations of the RBI. That is one thing. The Reserve Bank of India's regulatory functions cover the establishment of the banks, branch expansion, liquidity of their assets, management and method of working, amalgamation, reconstruction, and liquidation. All the commercial banks in India are required to open the accounts with the RBI. Every bank wishing to commence banking business in India must obtain a license from the RBI in terms of Section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. അപ്പോൾ സെക്ഷൻ 22 ബാങ്കിങ് റെഗുലേഷൻ ആക്ടിന്റെ സെക്ഷൻ 22 പ്രകാരം ഏതൊരു ബാങ്ക് ബിസിനസ് തുടങ്ങണമെങ്കിൽ need to get prior sanction from the Reserve Bank of India. Banks also required to obtain the permission for opening new branches also. Under Section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act, the bank can at any time inspect the books and accounts of any bank. Reserve Bankന് ഏത് സമയത്തും ഏതൊരു ബാങ്കിന്റെയും അക്കൗണ്ട്സ്, ബുക്സ് ഓഫ് അക്കൗണ്ട്സ്, അതുപോലെ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് എല്ലാം ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള അധികാരമുണ്ട്. In certain cases, the bank also deputes its officers to watch the working of the banks by periodical visits and by attendance at the meeting of the board also. അതായത് acting as a banker to all the banks, including cooperative banks. So that is the another point. So ഏതൊക്കെയാണ്? Monopoly of note issue. Second is what? Acting as a banker to the government. Then custodian of the foreign reserves. Then fourth point is this one, banker's bank, acting as a banker to all the other banks. Then next is bank of settlement and clearance. How to settle the things, how to clear the things. That is, as the Reserve Bank keeps the cash balance of all the commercial banks, it is easy for the bank to act as a settlement bank or clearing house for other banks. മറ്റു ബാങ്കിന്റെ ക്ലിയറിംഗ് ഏജന്റ് ആയിട്ട് maybe Reserve Bank of India may act. That is the case. As the Reserve Bank keeps the cash balances of all the commercial banks, എല്ലാ വാണിജ്യപരമായ ബാങ്കുകളുടെ cash balance remains open for the Reserve Bank. It is easy for the bank in order to act as settlement bank or clearing house for other banks. മറ്റു ബാങ്കിന്റെ ക്ലിയറിംഗ് ഏജന്റ് അല്ലെ ക്ലിയറിംഗ് ഹൗസ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സെറ്റിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ this bank is capable. So the member banks can adjust their claims against each other in the books of the Reserve Bank of India without paying or receiving the cash. Cash കൊടുക്കാതെ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കിട്ടാതെയും എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നു? The member banks can adjust their claims because the supreme authority is whom? Reserve Bank. He has the power to cancel the license of such banks also, even they are not following the rules. That is why the member banks can adjust their claims against each other in the books of the Reserve Bank of India without paying or receiving the cash. In the absence of the Reserve Bank of India, each banker has to enter, or each bank has to enter into separate clearance and settlement transaction with other banks individually. Reserve Bank of India manages the clearing houses in Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, and in other important cities. Okay, so these are banks of settlement and clearance. Reserve Bank acts as a bank of settlement and clearance. So, bank of settlement and clearance. That is the fifth point. Then another one is the information and research functions. So some research functions to be undertaken and the information to be collected also. That is to be taken care. Reserve Bank undertakes the collection and dissemination of information, passing out of the information, and conducts research in the field also. The bank issues several periodical publications which attempt to explain and assess the significance of economic and fiscal developments in the country. So the RBI publishes some periodicals that in order to help the economic and fiscal developments in the country, that is to be evaluated, and it should be it should be given the information to the others. So that is the case with regard to what information and the research functions. Then RBI as a lender of last resort. ഏത് ബാങ്കും എതിർത്താലും ആരുടെ അടുക്കൽ നിന്ന് ഒരു അവസാനത്തെ ആശ്രയമായിട്ട് the commercial banks in case of a financial crisis need to get financial aids. അതാണ് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. So as a lender of the last resort, RBI provides financial accommodation to the commercial banks in times of the crisis. സാമ്പത്തിക പരാധീനതകൾ അല്ലെ സാമ്പത്തികമായിട്ടുള്ള ക്രൈസിസ് മാനേജ്മെന്റ് ആയിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് കൊമേഴ്ഷ്യൽ ബാങ്ക്സ് നീഡ് ടു ഗെറ്റ് ഹെൽപ്പ് ഫ്രം വെയർ ദ RBI. സോ ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് പ്രൊവൈഡ്സ് ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ അക്കോമഡേഷൻ, സാമ്പത്തികപരമായിട്ട് അവരെ സഹായിക്കുന്നു. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് വൈ ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് ദ ലെൻഡർ ഓഫ് ലാസ്റ്റ് റിസോർട്ട്, അവസാനത്തെ ആശ്രയം. But this accommodation from the RBI to the commercial banks is not available as a matter of course. It is available only on the fulfillment of the below certain conditions. ഈ താഴെ പറയുന്ന കണ്ടീഷൻസ് ആപ്ലിക്കബിൾ ആയാൽ മാത്രമേ. So what are the conditions? Accommodation will be available only when a commercial bank is not able to raise funds from other sources. മറ്റു സോഴ്സസിൽ നിന്ന് they can't raise funds. Commercial bank is not able to raise any funds from other sources, then only they can approach the Reserve Bank. That is the case. They cannot get any fund help or any help from any other sources, then they can approach what? The RBI. That is the first condition. Another one is financial assistance will be granted only if the general condition of the commercial bank is concerned is good. So, അവരുടെ സാമ്പത്തിക സ്ഥിതി അല്ലെ കണ്ടീഷൻ, സാമ്പത്തിക സ്ഥിതി മോശമാണല്ലോ, അതാണ് ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ ക്രൈസിസ്. ബട്ട് ദ ജനറൽ കണ്ടീഷൻ, പാസ്റ്റ് കണ്ടീഷൻസ് or the past history, okay, past history, that is to be what? Financial assistance will be granted only if the general condition of the commercial bank concerned is good. If the condition is good, then only the financial assistance should be given. And accommodation will be available only if the affairs of the commercial banks are conducted in a satisfactory manner. ശരിയായ രീതിയിലാണ് അതിന്റെ വർക്കിംഗ് എങ്കിൽ മാത്രമേ അവരവരുടെ അതിന്റെ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് A to Z ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യും. Then only financial accommodation will be provided. So up to what is that? Fulfillment of the set conditions, then only RBI acting as a lender of last resort to the commercial banks. So what are the conditions? Accommodation will be available only if or only when a commercial bank is not able to raise the funds from other sources. മറ്റു സോഴ്സസിൽ നിന്ന് ഫണ്ട് കിട്ടാത്ത സമയത്ത് they can approach the Reserve Bank with the details RBI will help. That is the first case. If the general conditions of the commercial bank concerned is good, or the past history, നല്ല രീതിയിൽ പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ബാങ്കാണ്, അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെയുള്ള information is there, then financial assistance will be get. And also, accommodation will be available only if the affairs of the commercial banks are conducted in a satisfactory manner. So, accommodation will be available only if the affairs of the commercial bank's affairs that are to be conducted in a satisfactory. ശരിയായ രീതിയിലാണ് accommodation will be the working conditions, the dealings towards other industries or like that. That all need to assess. Then only accommodation, financial accommodation will be provided. That is the case, RBI acting as a lender of last resort. Another one is controller of the credit. Controller of credit. So what is that? Controller of credit or control of credit is one of the most important functions of RBI. RBI performs the task with twin objectives of checking the inflation, and providing sufficient credit for the economic development of the country. രാജ്യത്തിന്റെ സാമ്പത്തിക വളർച്ച അതിന് അത് നല്ല രീതിയിൽ ഉണ്ടാകുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് sufficient credit in case they need to check the inflation first. ആദ്യം പണപ്പെരുപ്പം ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യുകയും and also sufficient credit to be provided for the economic development of the country. So that is the controller of credit. The various methods employed by RBI to control the credit creation power of the commercial banks can be classified into two groups: quantitative credit control and qualitative credit control. So quantitative and qualitative. So that is the case with regard to the controller of credit. So that is the eighth point with regard to functions of a commercial bank, functions of an RBI. We will brush up this one. What is that? Again, is there? I will check it. Is there any more? No, this is the last. What is that function of the RBI, Reserve Bank? That is controller of credit. So the controller of credit, most important function, they need to check the inflation, and also provides the sufficient credit for economic development. Credit facilities that is to be provided. So these are the functions, and the various methods employed by the RBI to control the credit are quantitative credit control and qualitative credit control. So what is that? So quantitative controls are designed to regulate the volume of the credit that created by the banking system, and qualitative measures are designed to regulate the flow of credit in specific users. So that is the difference between quantitative and qualitative. That is designed to regulate the volume of the credit that is to be created by the banking system. Banking system provided cheyinna credit inde volume, the level, that is to be regulated through the quality control, while the qualitative controls designed to regulate the flow of credit. So volume of credit to be regulated by what? Quantitative controls, while flow of credit to be regulated by what? The qualitative measures or controlling measures. So that is, you need to understand what is a qualitative control and quantitative. Means what? Quantitative in the sense means volume of the credit to be regulated. The movement of the credit or the volume. Okay. So, ഏത് രീതിയിലാണ് ക്രെഡിറ്റിന്റെ ഫ്ലോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ വോളിയം, that is to be controlled by the quantitative control measures, while the qualitative measures are designed to regulate the flow of credit in specific users. So that is the case with regard to quantitative and qualitative control measures. So these are the various functions that is to be performed by a Reserve Bank of India or the central bank of our country. So, what are its? One is the monopoly of the note issue, banker acting as a banker to the government itself, then custodian of the forex reserves or foreign exchange reserve, that is forex reserve, then acting as a banker to the bank itself, isn't it? Acting as a banker to the bank, banker's bank, that is the thing. So acting as a banker to the government, acts as a banker and also acts as a financial agent and acts as a financial advisor. Then custodian of the forex reserves, then banker's bank, then bank of settlement and clearance, and also then information and research functions are there. Then RBI as acting as a lender of last resort through several conditions. The commercial bank can approach RBI for credit facility. That is the thing. And finally, acting as a controller of the credit. Control of the credit means what? That is by checking the inflation also and providing credit facilities for the economic development of the country. That is the case with regard to. And two measures are there: quantitative control measures and qualitative control measures. Quantitative control measures regulate the volume of the credit facility or the credit that is to be created by the banking system, while qualitative, it denotes what? That is designed to have the regulate the flow of credit. So these are the things we see today. So please have a look at today's classes and please clear off the doubts as and when occur. Right now, I'm going to wind up the session, so please clear off and the doubts. Also, after uploading the videos, please respond to that. Thank you.